Am I wrong for calling my daughter worthless and prioritizing my wife over her? I am a 47-year-old male, and my wife, 47-year-old female, and I have 3 kids, a 27-year-old female, a 20-year-old female, and a 16-year-old male. Our oldest one used to be the best kid. At 17, she met her longtime ex. She got married to him 4 years ago, but they got divorced after 6 months because she caught him cheating. We took her in, even paid for her therapy for years after that. She has a very good stable job and she makes more than what I and her mom make. We don't expect her to pay rent, but she doesn't contribute at all in our household. She has 2 dogs, and she barely even pets them or acknowledges them, and the dogs have a bigger bond with my wife and I, and our 2 younger kids than their actual owner. She recently stopped paying her own bills because money is tight, but she'd always go out to expensive clubs, spas, trips, resorts, etc., while neglecting even her own personal bills and responsibilities. For the past 4 years, she only gets involved with married men because she enjoys the fact that she gets picked over the married women, and she's of the mindset, if they were good wives they'd be able to keep a man. He chose me for a reason over his wife. Knowing she's troubled, I've always tried to be a good father to her and offer her a good support system, but my wife got done so quickly with our daughter's attitude because her behavior was also affecting our younger kids. I tried to keep a balance, and while doing that, my daughter took advantage of the support I offered her to draw a conflict between my wife and I. In our 30 years of relationship, my wife and I never had major arguments and fights, but because of our daughter, those arguments happen every other day. As I tried to be a good father to her, I forgot how to be a good husband to my wife and a good father to my 2 younger kids. I again tried to find a balance and have a talk with my oldest about how I don't want to be taking sides anymore. She can live her life how she wants, but she should stop trying to cause conflict with me and her mom. She took that personally and started verbally insulting me, and said I'm a spineless C*NT and how I am giving up on her, and I'm showing favoritism to her siblings, and while she can get past that, she can't get over how I'm willing to put my wife's feelings above my own daughter. She called my wife, her own mom, a joke of a woman who's worthless, and she'll enjoy the moment I decide to cheat on her. I told her she's worthless, and from now on she gets no sympathy from me. I gave her 1 week to pack her things and leave the house since her presence is toxic to both my wife and her siblings, and I also told her the dogs will stay with us since she can't even feed her own pets properly as a grown-ass adult. I've tried to help her for many years, even paying money I barely have so she can attend therapy, but I told her, unless she's willing to help herself, we can't do much, and she's on her own now. Am I the AH for being so harsh to her? Am I wrong for asking my teenage son to babysit my younger kids when he already had other plans? I'm 41-year-old male, married to 39-year-old female. We have 3 kids together, 7-year-old boy, he is autistic, and twin, 2-year-old girls. I also have a son, 17-year-old male. From my first marriage, his mother and I share custody. My wife is currently in the hospital, nothing too serious, and I'm working 4 hours in the office and the rest from home. Last week, my wife went to the hospital and my son was staying at my ex's that week, so I got a nanny for the kids for the 4 hours a day I have to work in the office. The nanny didn't work out, she just came for 1 day. My 7-year-old son is very particular about his needs and wants, and is a difficult kid to take care of. The twin toddlers are obviously a lot of work. My 17-year-old son watches his younger siblings a lot when he is at our house, he likes it, the kids adore him, and when he is watching them alone, so wife and I can go out for a date night or something, I always pay him $50 an hour, which is what a nanny gets for 3 kids like mine per hour. I called my son last week, asking him to come babysit the kids for the remaining 3 days of the week, then I'd get some leave and stay home myself. He told me he already had plans to go to the beach with his friends and take a road trip with them. I told him if he can come for those 4 hours for 3 days, I'll pay him $100 per hour instead of the usual $50, and if he can reschedule his plans for just a few days to next week, he'll then have a lot more money to spend on his vacation. He then agreed and was really happy about our deal. His mother called me later furious, saying that I am parentifying our son, that I should let him have a life and that it's not his fault I had more kids I can't manage. Am I the AH for asking my son to babysit? Am I wrong for refusing to change the family therapist we see like my wife wants? My wife and I have been married for 2 years. I am the father of an 8-year-old son, and she is the mother of a 6-year-old daughter. My first wife passed away 2 years before I remarried. She had been sick for most of our son's life, and I always knew the day would come I would lose her. I didn't try to rush into another marriage, but I found someone who helped make me happy again, and someone who knew the struggles of being a single parent. She was also good with my son, and I saw her being a good mom to her daughter. My son had voiced things when my wife and I got engaged about not wanting her to replace mommy and other terms like that. I asked him why he thought that would happen, and he brought up a friend of his in school. We spoke about it, he started seeing a therapist, and he realized my getting married again was not replacing anyone. It was adding more people to our family. But that it could look like many different things. My wife was aware of all this and never voiced any concerns. After we got married, the topic of adopting each other's children came up. My stepdaughter is all for the idea, and was so excited by the idea of me being her dad and my son being her brother. My son was not for it though. He said he didn't want to be adopted. My wife and I discussed things, we both had concerns, her about the impact on our family and me, that expectations would lead to a lot of drama in our lives, so we decided family therapy could be beneficial. I was proven right because the expectations we all had were different. My wife wanted to be mom to my son, and for me to be dad to her daughter. I expected to follow the kids' leads with the relationships and was more than happy to respect what each child wanted. My stepdaughter wants a dad and a brother. My son doesn't want a new mom and wants to be able to use step and not have the family like his friend has. The therapist over the months has said we can't all get what we want, but the kids should be put first, and nothing should be rushed or forced. She suggested I could adopt my stepdaughter and my wife should just try to work on building a relationship with my son. My wife doesn't believe the therapist is working with the best interest of our family and wants to change. I worry she just wants a therapist who will say my son doesn't know what is best for him and to go ahead with the adoption. She denies this, but she doesn't say exactly what isn't working with our current therapist. So I said no. She's unhappy with this. She told her mom, who told me I should be willing to change when my wife doesn't feel like our therapist is working out. My wife said I am invalidating her this whole process and she doesn't understand why. Am I the AH? Am I wrong for calling my dad out for saying mom would have loved his wife or would have been happy for them as a couple? My mom died when I was 16-year-old. 3 years later, dad started dating the one woman my mom hated most in the world. They had beef going on since childhood, and then when they worked together, it continued. Mom used to say how much she hated her, how she'd be glad when she no longer had to have her in her life. She said she was the worst person ever. It used to be a joke with my dad and my mom's family that mom would haunt her if mom was the first of the two of them to die. Everyone knew the feeling was mutual between them though. So much that people they worked with did everything so they never had to work together, and their boss almost fired my dad's current wife back in the day for her unprofessional behavior. Dad fell in love with her though, and ever since, he's been determined to paint a different picture. It turned my mom's family against him, who hated him for his choice of partner after mom. They said if he expects to reunite with mom in death, then he has another thing coming because she would never forgive him for choosing her, his current wife. His choice of wife bothers me too. As well as how he talks about her and my mom. He has talked endlessly about how she would have loved his wife or how happy she would be for them. Once he even said she sent his wife to us so when I have kids, they can have a grandma. My fiance and I were having dinner with my dad and her parents. Dad's wife was there too. Dad started off on his BS about this, and I called him out and reminded him that mom hated her, and that the feeling was very much mutual while she was alive. That he had the right to move on, but to stop painting a pretty picture. He told me I had done that to hurt him and that he didn't need my judgment. Am I an AH?